welcome back to my channel. My name is Heather, and in today's video we are going through my entire physical TBR. With it being the start of a new year, I thought it would be a fun idea to go through and pull off every book on my shelves that I haven't read that I plan on reading at some point in the future, to see how many books I have at the start of the year, how many of them I actually get to, and then hopefully, I think what I'm going to do throughout the year is track all of the books that I acquire, and the goal is to read more than what I acquire. Pulling all these books off, it kind of is really overwhelming to me just how many books I have, but a couple things are playing into that. First of all, we did just get a whole bunch of books for Christmas, so that has added quite a big stack to it, so that will go down as we go through. Second of all, a lot of these books are books that my husband has read, so somebody has read a lot of these books. If I was to go through just the books of ones that neither of us have read, it'd be a lot smaller. So these are just books that he's read and recommended that I also want to read. This isn't every book that I haven't read on our shelves, but there are definitely some books that my husband has gotten that I have no interest in reading, and so I did not add those to this pile. I also did not add any books that I plan on rereading, just because I have technically read those books before. But as of when I just counted up, there are 86 books on my shelves that I have not read that I plan on reading. Some of them I don't currently have in my possession because we've loaned them out to people, so I'll kind of mention those as I go through it. But I thought that today I'd just walk through all the books that I have on my physical TBR, why I haven't gone around to reading them maybe, and then you guys can try and convince me which ones I should read first. So let's just dive into it. Also, quick apology, my voice sounds a little crazy. I've been sick for the last several days, and so it's still just having a hard time clearing up. So hopefully it doesn't sound too crazy, but let's just dive right in. These books are going to be in no particular order. This is just going to be whatever I happen to grab first. So we're going to start with this pile that's right here by my knee. The first one the first few are several Brandon Sandersons. All of these are ones that my husband has read. He's completely caught up on all of the Brandon Sanderson books that we own, except for one that I got him for Christmas, or two that I got him for Christmas. But other than that, he's almost completely caught up. So most of the Brandon Sanderson ones you could just assume my husband has read, and I just need to get around to them. He's been a Brandon Sanderson fan for years, and I've just been getting into his books. So that's where a lot of the bulk of this comes from, are all of his Brandon Sanderson books. But the first one is The Rhythmatist. This one's a standalone. I think it's more of a middle grade book. So I don't know, this one will just be a quick short read sometime. It just hasn't made the top of my priority as far as which Brandon Sanderson books I've been reading, so that's why I haven't got to that one. Same with kind of the next few. I've just been picking and prioritizing which ones I want to get to first, and these ones just didn't make the list yet. Next one is The Sunlit Man. This one I am waiting because my husband said that he thinks I should read a few more of the books in Stormlight Archive before I pick this one up, so I'm trusting his judgment on what order I should read these books in, so this one I'm holding off on for a while. Yumi and the Nightmare Painter is again one that I'm not entirely sure where it best fits in the whole storyline of the Cosmere. I do believe it's technically standalone though, but I will have to ask my husband when the best time is to read this in order to get all the connections. Tress of the Emerald Sea. This one is also a standalone. I believe it's linked into the Cosmere, but it's not like crazy connected. This one is on my books, my 25 books that I want to read in 2025, so we'll be getting to this one this next year for sure. Okay, and then taking a break from the Brandon Sanderson for a minute. We'll come back to it though. We do have Fablehaven. I somehow managed to get through my childhood never reading Fablehaven. So I do want to go back and read these at some point. I think that they are books that I could actually really enjoy. My husband read them all as a kid, and so this is actually his copy from when he was a kid. We have this one, and then I didn't pull it off the shelf, but we also have the third one. We have the third one. We need to find the second one. I'm trying to get them all secondhand. I will get around to this one at some point. I kind of have been listening to a lot of middle grade books lately, so I might end up listening to this one. We'll see. But I do want to get through the Fablehaven series. The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Better. This one I got, what would it have been? Not this past summer, but the year before, so summer of 2023, while we were out in Charlotte. I found it at a secondhand store, so I need to get to this one at some point. It seems like a maybe like sci-fi steampunk retelling of Alice in Wonderland, which could be really interesting. I plan on reading, and we'll get to this in a minute, Alice in Wonderland this year, so this might be interesting after reading the original one. This one was a very recent addition to my shelves. This is the Trader's Game. I found this one at a secondhand store. This is by Jennifer A. Nielsen. I don't know anything about it. I just saw the cover, thought it looked cool, and I'm always looking for more YA fantasy, so this one is a good one. The Thief Lord by Cornelia Funk. This one, again, is one that I bought at a secondhand store. I just thought the cover was so cool, and it seems like a good kid's story. It definitely seems middle grade. So again, just sometime when I want just a really quick read that I can get through very fast, this one is on the list. Okay, one stack down. This next stack of books are ones that are mostly ones that we got for Christmas. Some of them are kind of intermingled, but this is primarily books that we got this Christmas. First one is Foul Lady Fortune by Chloe Gong. I do really want to continue the Secret Shanghai series. I read the first duology, the These Violet Delights, Our Violet Ends, this year. So I would love to continue the series in this next year. So very excited for this one. This one's also going to for sure be being read next year. Another Brandon Sanderson Edge Dancer. This is one of the novellas in the Stormlight archive. I am on book 2. That's the next one that I need to read. This one will come after that, I believe. So probably get to this one potentially this year. I do definitely want to read the next Stormlight archive book this year, and then that one will be after it. So that one will be fun. This one technically I got for my husband, but I do also want to read it. But this is The Shadow of the Gods by John Gwynne. I don't know a ton about it. It's a very high fantasy something type of book. I've heard a lot of good things about this author, so I'm very intrigued by this one. We'll see. It's kind of a race to see if me and my husband get to this one first. Uprooted by Naomi Novik. This one, I've gotten to Naomi Novik's Temeraire series this year, and so my husband got me another one of her books. This one is a standalone, and I believe this is a retelling. Is it Rumpelstiltskin? It's a retelling of some kind of book. I thought it was a retelling of Rumpelstiltskin, but I could be wrong. But yeah, excited to try another book of hers because I've been loving the Temeraire series. This one's super random. This is The Hollows by H.L. Tinsley. I actually know nothing about this book. It was a little bit of a mix-up where I'd put on my list that I wanted to read The Hollows with H-O, and then they ended up getting me The Hollows, but it actually sounds really interesting. It sounds like I don't know, some kind of mystery, maybe something with fantasy, sci-fi, something. I don't know. It'll be interesting. Sometimes it's fun to have a book that you know nothing about to read, so I am kind of excited for that one. This one's another one that I got my husband, but I also think sounds interesting. We'll see what he says about it. This is In the Shadow of Lightning. Again, don't know anything about this. I just was looking for books for fans of Brandon Sanderson, and this one came up. It was suggested quite a few times, so I'll probably let him read it first, have him tell me what he thinks of it, and then I'll decide for sure if I'm gonna read it. One Dark Window, again, I got for my husband, but I also really want to read this one. I've heard tons of good things about this one online, so I'm very intrigued to see if it actually lives up to the hype. I love a kind of darker fantasy. I think that will be really fun. Okay, and then a couple that my husband actually got for me for Christmas. The first one is Thistlefoot. This one is a Baba Yaga retelling, basically about her like great grandchildren or something like that. And then they get an inheritance of the house Thistlefoot. So very fun, very interested in this one. Screwtape Letters by C.S. Lewis. This one is obviously just a classic. I'm very interested to read something by C.S. Lewis other than Narnia, because that's the only one that I've read by him. So this is gonna be where I start. All right, another series that I'm very interested to start is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. These books just look so cool, and I love the idea of something based off of folklore from other countries than what you typically get. This one's very Middle Eastern inspired. It has something to do with gin, so it will be super interesting. I'm hoping to get to this one this year. Okay, and then I believe the last book that I got for Christmas, I kind of mentioned earlier, but this is Black Powder War by Naomi Novik. This is book 3 in the Temeraire series. So I read the first 2 this year, and I'm really excited to continue the series, which is what this one is. So very pumped for this one. I am definitely getting to that this year. Okay, that should be everything that was a Christmas book. So just jumping into some other ones that I had already on my shelf. The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert is another one that I got secondhand. I've heard good things about this one. It sounds like it's a little bit of a darker fantasy with a spooky forest and stuff like that. So I don't know, I'm trying to decide if I read this, save this one for the fall, or if I read it earlier. If you have thoughts, let me know. And then we'll do these next two books together. I do need to read the Six of Crows Crooked Kingdom duology. I read Shadow and Bone trilogy, all three of the books this year, so I'm really excited to have these ones for when I want to jump back into that world. I don't know if I'll get to them super early in the year, but I will most likely end up picking these up next year. The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern, another one that I got secondhand. This one is also on my 25 books for 2025, and I'm hoping to pick this one up pretty soon because I've heard it's a really good one for the winter. And it's snowy, so it seems like this one would be a good one for maybe January. All right, Dance of Thieves by Mary E. Pearson. This one, again, has gone kind of viral, but I'm now trying to decide. I found this one secondhand, and it's honestly a little bit beat up, but I'm trying to decide if I want to read the trilogy that comes before this first. I've heard most people seem to skip that trilogy. I honestly didn't even really know it was a thing until I heard Carrie talk about it, and she said that it was really good. I think that's who it was. And so I don't know. I am going back and forth after reading Shadow and Bone and really enjoying that one. I'm like, oh, well, maybe I do want to read the trilogy before I jump into this. So if you have any suggestions on that, let me know. This one might not be one that I get too soon because I might decide to read the trilogy first. Say Nothing. This one is one that my husband read. He loves it, and it's gotten a lot of hype recently online, and he keeps telling me I need to read it at some point. So at some point I will get to this one. I don't know if it will be soon or if it will even be next year, but sometime I do need to get around to reading this one. Poisonwood Bible by Barbara Kingsolver. This one is one that my husband had from growing up, and we've just had it on our shelf. It's kind of a classic book. I don't know a ton about it, and I don't know that it's super high on my list, but I am intrigued enough that I want to read it at some point. The Light We Carry by Michelle Obama. This one my mom got me for Christmas a couple years ago, and I still haven't gone around to reading it, so it is on my list of my 25 to read in 2025 because I need to read it and see if it's good or not, because I've had it on my shelves for quite a while. This one is another relatively recent addition. This is Anna Karenina by Leo Tolstoy. I love War and Peace. I've read it twice now. I reread it just barely this year and annotated it. So I'm excited to have another Tolstoy on my shelves so I can pick it up when I'm in the mood for his writing. I don't know how soon I'll get to this one. I did just barely finish reading Master and Margarita, so I might give myself a little bit of time before I pick this one up, but I do think it'll be interesting. Catcher in the Rye. This is another classic that my husband had that he added to our shelves when he got married, and it's just a classic that I need to read at some point. My husband keeps saying that he's very interested to know what I think about this one, so at some point I gotta get around to it. The Outsiders, another classic that I didn't really plan on reading until I saw that the musical was winning tons of awards at the last Tony Awards, and so it got me intrigued. I want to read it before we go and see the musical at some point. We don't have plans to go and do that anytime soon, but I do know that I'll want to have read the book first. So I'd like to read it at some point so that if the opportunity ever comes up to go and see the show, I've already read it and I don't have to like try and cram it in. This one I found at a bookstore or at a thrift store not too long ago. This is Go Set a Watchman. It is the sequel to To Kill a Mockingbird. To Kill a Mockingbird was actually the first book that my husband ever gave me back when we were dating, and so kind of fun, but I had no idea there was a sequel until recently, and so I would like to read this. I do feel like I need to reread To Kill a Mockingbird first, and then I can read this one because there's a bit of a time jump and it's kind of like 10 years later or whatever, you're following the characters. I need to take the sticker off of this one, but this is Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. Tale of Two Cities is one of my all-time favorite books, but I have never read another book by Dickens, and so I really need to. I found this one at the thrift store, and I think this will be the next one. Not sure when I'm going to get to this one, but it is the next Dickens book that I want to read. Like I mentioned earlier, this next year I do plan on reading Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. I have the book that has both of them together, so definitely happening sometime this spring. It feels like the perfect time to read these. My Antonia, I don't know how to say that. Another one that my husband just had in his collection when we got married, and I am intrigued. I know nothing about it, but it's apparently a classic, and so I would like to try it at some point, I think. Common Sense and Other Writings by Thomas Paine. This is another classic that my husband had. It sounds like it's got a few things bound up into this one book, so I don't know, it's not super high on my list, but at some point I think it'd probably be good to read. Okay, we finished the books on that side. Now we're switching to these piles. First off, let's dive into all of the other Brandon Sanderson books that I haven't talked about yet. Elantris by Brandon Sanderson. This one, I believe, is one of his first books published, if I'm correct. Not 100% sure on that one, but again, just one that I haven't gotten to because I've been prioritizing other books. White Sand, this one is a graphic novel. It's a hefty graphic novel. I do think I want to try and get to this one this year. I haven't ever really read a graphic novel before, so I think that this one I'm going to have be my first one. And I'm very intrigued. He's also currently writing a novel version of this, so I don't know. Interesting stuff. Okay, and then I'm actually missing the first one of these, but this is the second Mistborn series. This is the Wax and Wayne quartet, I guess. I think there's only 4 books in it, but I did read Mistborn, I did read Mistborn in 2023, so it's been a minute since I've read that one, but I do want to read this one. This basically, you take a big time jump and then you're following like the same world, but maybe a couple hundred years later. I don't know what the time jump is, but I do want to get to these at some point because I did really enjoy Mistborn, so it would be interesting to see kind of the fallout of that series. And I think that is all of the Brandon Sanderson books. Oh no, there is one more that my dad has, and that is Mistborn Secret History, which I'm not entirely sure when you read it in the whole arc of everything, but I'm sure my husband will be able to tell me. And then the next 2 books are also on my 25 books to read in 2025. The first one is The Witch Doctor's Daughter by Katrina Maud Dowd. I read her book The Fisherman King towards the end of 2024. I'm really looking forward to reading this one. I think she's a really good writer, and I'm excited to see what she does with this one. And then A Study in Drowning by Ava Reid. This one I got over Black Friday, and I've heard good things about it. I'm saving it for when I feel like I'm in the mood. I feel like this is one that I'm going to need to be in the mood for when I pick it up. I don't know that I'm going to be obsessed with it if I pick it up when I'm not in the mood for it. Okay, and then this next stack is my collection of Orson Scott Card books that I still need to read. I've read the first main Ender's quartet in the Ender's verse, so Ender's Game and then the 3 books that come after it, but I have collected several of his other books. Every time I go to a thrift store, I scour the books for Orson Scott Card, and these are the ones that I managed to collect. So the first 3 are the second series that I want to read within the Ender's verse. This is the Shadow series. I don't know what it's actually called, but it starts with Ender's Shadow and then Shadow of the Hegemon and then Shadow Puppets. And this one, I believe, bridges the gap between book 1 and 2 in that main series. I didn't particularly love Ender's Game, the book itself, but I loved the books that came after it. I feel like it got better as you went through the books, so I'm very intrigued to see how I feel about this other series. And then the other 5 books that I have from Orson Scott Card is a complete series that I found at the thrift store. Somebody had gone and donated like their whole series of it, and this one is not part of the Ender's verse, but it is the Memory of Earth, a Homecoming series, maybe? I don't know anything about this. I just saw Orson Scott Card and I grabbed it. So I don't know. I don't know if I'll get to those ones this year. We'll see. I might only get through the Ender's verse series, but I think they could be good. 2 more stacks and then we're done. Top of this one, Ready Player One. I have seen the movie for this one, so I feel like that's made me have this lower on my list of books that I really want to get to. But I do want to read the book at some point and see. It's been a long time since I've watched the movie, so maybe I'll read the book and then rewatch the movie so I can actually see the differences between them. But this one will be fun for when I would just want like a sci-fi quick book. Okay, and then I only grabbed one of these off the shelf because I don't want to bring the whole series down, but Harry Potter. I have never read Harry Potter. I'd never even seen the movies until I married my husband, and then he was like, seriously? And so he made me watch all of them. And they're good. I just feel like at this point, I know so much of what happens just because it's such a big thing in pop culture that I've been a little less motivated to read the books. But I do want to read them at some point. I think it would be good for me to read them. So I'm not committing to this anytime soon. I don't know that it'll necessarily happen in 2025, but at some point I do need to read the Harry Potter series. Okay, when I said that we were done with Brandon Sanderson, I was wrong. We were done with the Cosmere books. But we do have a few other Brandon Sanderson books that are not Cosmere. First of all, his middle grade series, the Evil Librarian, Alcatraz versus the Evil Librarians series. I read the first book. So we do own book 2 and 3, so I need to do these. These are just super quick reads, so if I'm ever feeling slumpy and I just want something fast and fun, these are a good option that I'm kind of saving until I need them. And then we have the Skyward series. I am actually about halfway through Skyward. I started listening to it on audiobook and I found the narrator's voice so obnoxious. And so I kind of quit reading it, and I'm kind of putting this one off until I feel like I can separate the narrator and just give it a new fair shot. So I don't even know if I'm gonna get to that one this year. We'll see. I think I'm just gonna give it a while till I totally forget about the audiobook and get that out of my brain, and then I'll just start over and read from the beginning. But we do own the first 3 books in the series, so that's that one. And then this time, this is for real, this is the last Brandon Sanderson. Steelheart is like his sci-fi superhero-y one. I don't know a ton about it. We only own the first book, so I don't know. Not the highest on my list. It's not my husband's favorite, so it just isn't gonna be where I start or get to anytime soon, but this one will be interesting at some point, I'm sure. I just don't know that it's super high priority. Okay, and then the last stack. First one is Hyperion by Dan Simmons. I want to start the series this year. It's on my list of books to read in 2025. I'm trying to get into more sci-fi. I really love the sci-fi genre, but I feel like I have a hard time finding book recommendations in this genre. So if you have any, please leave them down below. I need more good sci-fi. Jurassic Park. I obviously I've seen the movies. I love the movies, and so I do think it'd be fun to read this book at some point. My husband did read it already. I just think it'd be intriguing to see how it goes in book form. Children of Dune is book 3 in the Dune series. Book 2 honestly kind of put me off of this. It was so weird. I don't know. Book 2 is weird, so I'm gonna give it one more book and then decide if I want to continue reading Dune or not. Honestly, this copy that I have is like super beat up, but whatever. I'm not so obsessed with these series that it really matters to me, but yeah, so gonna give it one last shot. If I don't like this book, then I think I'm gonna call it good and not read any more Dune. The first book was good. It wasn't like my favorite ever. Second book was weird. We'll see how I feel about the third book. Okay, we're missing the first book in this series too because my dad currently has it. But this is the Scythe series. Again, my dad has book 1. And then we have Thunderhead and the Toll. My husband recently read these and he loved them. I do need to try them at some point. It's a very interesting concept. I think it'll be really good. I think I'll really enjoy it. I just need to make it happen, and honestly my dad needs to read it so I can get the first book back. Rebel by Marie Lu. This one is the kind of like 4th, but also kind of an extension of the Legend series. Is that what Champion? I don't know. What's the first book? I think it's Legend is the first book. But I love that series so much. That series was so good. I hated the ending of the 3rd book. And then I found out that there was a 4th one that is like several years later. You're mostly following the younger sibling of one of the main characters. But you get kind of some better closure. And so I really need to read this one, but it's been like 3 years since I've read the original trilogy, so I think I need to reread it and then get to this one. This one's super random, but this is Chasing Vermeer. It's like a kid's book found at a thrift store. It looked fun. I love a good mystery, and kids' mysteries are always fun and quick, so another one that I'm kind of saving for when I really feel like I need it. And that kind of starts us into the mysteries that I have. I really don't have that many mysteries on my physical TBR because I tend to get to them pretty quickly. I love reading mysteries and thrillers, but again, I buy them and then I almost immediately read them 90% of the time. The next 2 are Vicious and Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. My husband's read these. I've heard great things about them online. He loved the first one, didn't really like the second one, so I don't know. I'm still going back and forth on if I actually want to read these or if I want to just get rid of them. He said that the second one swore like a lot and just became kind of weird. So I don't know. I'm hesitant to get into it where he didn't really like the second one. So we'll see. I may or may not read these. I'm not sure yet. The Couple Next Door, just a little tiny book, but this one's another one that I got at the thrift store. I know nothing about it because I just picked it up because it seemed intriguing when I read the back. So, but it's been so long I can't remember. So, I don't know. It'll be an interesting one at some point. The Terminal List by Jack Carr. This one is the one that my husband loves. It's, I believe, written by someone from Utah. I could be so wrong about that, but I want to say he lives in Park City. Okay, and then he used to be a Navy SEAL, and so he wrote these fictional books based off of some of his experiences. I've Survived by Holly Jackson, just a classic one. I read her The Good Girl's Guide to Murder trilogy this year. It wasn't my favorite ever, but it was still really good, so I'm interested to try out one that's of different characters from her. Deception Point by Dan Brown. I finished the whole Robert Langdon series, and so I need more Dan Brown. I love him. He is up there in one of my favorite authors. I think his concepts are so cool. I think his characters are so different and intriguing, and so I'm pumped for this one. And then the last book on my physical TBR is Magpie Murders. I got this one a long time. This is by Anthony Horowitz. I've kind of been saving this one for when I want a book that just, it feels like his writing. I've been listening over the past few years to his Hawthorne and Horowitz series, which is good. I'm starting to lose interest in that one, but this one is a very intriguing concept. I just need to get around to it at some point. We'll see when, hopefully sometime this year, because it's been on my shelves for way too long. And with that, that is my entire physical TBR. If there are any books that you would highly recommend, please convince me to read them. Some of these books have been on my TBR for a long time. Some of them are recent additions, but hopefully I get through a pretty good chunk of this next year. I'm probably going to try and refrain myself from buying too many books until I've read through some more of this. I'll probably try and keep myself to just buying the next books in series for at least the first part of the year. But thank you so much for watching. I'm going to go put all of these books back on my shelves, which will take quite a while, but it'll be fun. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next one very soon. Bye.